August is an especially auspicious month in the history of our church. Indeed, we will mark many anniversaries this month as we begin celebrating our centennial jubilee, our 100th year of being called to be the Church of the Good Shepherd here in Rangeley. That celebration will officially begin with a festive worship service 3 weeks from today on the 22nd, and continue into the months that follow. The Centennial Planning Committee has some wonderful things planned for our Jubilee year. With so much to anticipate, I feel rather like the little kid who just can't wait for Christmas morning. So, welcome to Christmas in July, except it's August. You see, I've been reading through so much of our history, I've lost track of what month or year it is. Or maybe it's just that I'm feeling like all the months and years are here with us this morning. A certain fullness of time. What was, is now, and ever shall be. More than 100 years ago today, in 1919, before there was even any church building, a few women of what would become the Church of the Good Shepherd were getting everything ready for their first summer fair, a tradition that has continued every summer since. A year later, those women had formed an Episcopal guild and decided 101 years ago from this very day to build a church. Within 12 months, a plot of land on Lake Street had been purchased. A stable moved to and converted into the first church of the Good Shepherd. Although a dream come true, they didn't dare dream that they would outgrow that little church. Just over 4 decades later, another group of faithful disciples was breaking ground for a larger building, this church in which we gather today. In fact, on this very day, 56 years ago, the Right Reverend Oliver Leland Loring, the 5th Bishop of Maine, arrived in Rangeley and, according to tradition, knocked on the door which was opened to him by the wardens. The bishop then proceeded up the middle aisle to the chancel gate, while the litany for the church was prayed. He then blessed the altar, after which the new church bell was rung officially for the first time. Writing almost 40 years ago in the June 1982 edition of the church newsletter, Barbara Bruce wrote, "The bell we hear ringing on Sundays was installed on the new church building in the spring of 1965, the gift of Rangeley guide and historian Leland Nile. Leland was the first to ring it the day of its dedication, followed in short order by the children of the parish." The English tradition of giving the bell a name was followed here in Rangeley, and the bell is called Shepherd. This name is engraved on one side, and the Latin words Venite adoremus Dominum, or Come, let us worship the Lord, are on the other. When Shepherd is rung, it sounds middle C, a note that was intentionally chosen to harmonize with the other bells in town, the bell on the Baptist church and the bell that is now housed at the Congregational church. When the bells are sounded together, they play a 3-note chord, which is called a European peal. The bell was cast in bronze by the famed Dutch bell makers of Pettit and Fritzen at Arley Rixtel in Holland, and it was mounted in a belfry of redwood and cedar, which was a gift to the church by the sons of Mr. and Mrs. Ray Estes in their memory. Again, Barbara Bruce reported that after it was mounted, blessed, and rung, a large crane hoisted the whole assemblage into place on top of the church. The raising of that bell into place was the most spectacular and crowd-stopping event of the whole summer season. Bells have always marked the milestones of our lives, ringing out joyfully at weddings or solemnly at the loss of life. The canons of the Church of England prescribe when any is passing out of this life, a bell shall be tolled, and the minister shall not then slack to do his last duty. Bells have been used throughout history for all kinds of occasions, to mark the hours and tell the time, to sound an alarm or warn of danger, to proclaim liberty or to celebrate joy, and to call the faithful to worship and prayer. The poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote that bells themselves are the best preachers, their brazen lips are learned teachers. From their pulpits of stone in the upper air, now a sermon, and now a prayer. In the same way that church bells sound out in the community calling people to the worship of God, so too do I believe that our individual lives and our corporate witness should be doing exactly the same thing. Just as no one can miss or ignore the sound of church bells ringing across the valley, so they should not be able to miss or ignore the call that goes forth from our individual and corporate life, praising and glorifying and honoring God in all that we say and do. For we are each meant to be bells, ringing out the good news of Jesus Christ, and not only here beneath the redwood and cedar belfry that holds our shepherd high, but everywhere across this valley, echoing off the shores of Rangeley and beyond in everything that we say and do. The genuineness of our discipleship, our integrity and humility, our compassion and kindness, our thoughtfulness and generosity, and our readiness to serve and give and love. Some of us may be tuned to middle C like shepherd, and some to other notes. But though we may be bells with different tones, we are still meant to sound, to ring out with joy. As the author of the letter to the Ephesians might put it, when we each chime with the joy of knowing Jesus, each time we ring out the truth in love. Some will sound like apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers, each of us given grace according to the measure of Christ's gift. Therefore we are meant to chime, to ring, to proclaim and make known, to testify and shout and sing. Just as Jesus is God's word and came to be heard, so too are we meant to sound forth the same message, to repeat the sounding joy, to re-echo it far and wide, tell out to the nations again and again the gospel of peace, the grace of forgiveness, and the love of God for all. And while we will sound different notes when rung, together we harmonize. We become the one body that is Christ, who came to ring out the good news of salvation, to save and set free, Jesus, our great bell of liberty. That's why we rejoice and sing and sleigh bells ring at Christmas time, angels singing, church bells ringing. Ring, Christmas bells, merrily ring, tell all the world Jesus is King. Ring the merry Christmas bells, chime out the wondrous story. Glory be to God on high, forevermore be glory. Because echoing in those Christmas bells are the even more glorious chimes of Christ's victory over sin and death, his resurrection and ascension, and why we sing at Easter time. Ring the joy bells, Christ has risen, glory bells are ringing. Ring the joy bells of the Sabbath, blessed day when he arose, as the conqueror in triumph, death and sin his vanquished foes. Bells resounding, joy unbounding. Because love came down at Christmas, liberty rose up for all at Easter. Bells call us not only to worship and witness, but also to the wondrous. They proclaim that something wonderful has happened. God has done something new in the gift of his only Son, just as Jesus has done something new through his death on the hard wood of the cross and the open tomb of his resurrection. Perhaps only bells can send forth a sound that rings true to that gift. in all of its joy and heartbreaking solemnity. That cherished bread falling from the heavens so that we might have life, and life more abundantly. For the bread of God is that which comes down from heaven and gives life to the world, Jesus said, a gift from his Father. Those who had witnessed the feeding of the 5,000 said to him, "Sir, give us this bread always." They came asking for bread and another sign, another miracle, not understanding that Jesus is the bread. He is the sign. He is the miracle. The manna that fed the people's ancestors in the wilderness had satisfied physical hunger and then vanished when the Israelites entered into the promised land. Christ, the true and eternal bread, nourishes the inner soul, gives lasting life, and never stops giving life. Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." Words that ring true. Let every bell you hear remind you of these words. Let every bell you hear call your attention to God's astonishing gift to us. Let every bell you hear call to mind the name of Jesus who came to save and set free. Of all the moments to which bells call us, let us not forget the bell that calls us to the table, to share in a sacred meal. Blessed are those who are called to the supper of the Lamb. Let every heart prepare him room. Amen.